Hello and welcome to today's Get Together by getAbstract. My name is Michael. I'm executive editor at getAbstract and responsible for our new journal that went online a couple of weeks ago. And I'm your host today. Before we begin and I introduce our guest today, I'd like to take a moment to remind you why we are doing this video get-togethers in the first place. The goal of getAbstract, as you may know, is to find, to rate, to compress, and to curate relevant knowledge from trusted sources so you can make better decisions in your personal and your private life, and your professional life, of course. This Get Together series serves the same purpose, but in the current exceptional situation when many of us are working from home or forced to work from home and an economic crisis is imminent, we do this in a different medium, more spontaneous, conversational, more direct, unfiltered, and from home office to home office. And of course, with the same focus on giving you practical advice on how best to cope with the current situation. Having said that, a warm welcome to our guest today, Paul Glynn. Paul is a member of our UK sales team here at getAbstract, and the topic of today's session will be selling successfully during and after COVID-19. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Michael, and hi to everyone watching, talking to you from my home office here in Southport in the UK.
Paul, let's get right into the topic. I mean, selling products and services in the last few years has changed dramatically, right? Even before the pandemic. Face-to-face meetings have given way to meeting virtually more often and using technology to find, manage, and close sales, and also to measure customer engagement and sales performance. One could say you are at the forefront of the digital transformation. And you know all of those up and downsides of working remotely and with digital tools already. So when the first officials came and said, look, no handshakes, no more, stay at home, no business trips, no commuting, no meetings with prospects, what did you think? How did you react? And did you think of it as an advantage or a disadvantage?
Well, the fact is there's lots of disadvantages, but to a salesperson, most typically, certainly this one is an advantage. I'd say that salespeople around the world are in a great place to be successful during times of change. I mean, we're talking about fast, dramatic change here, nothing we've ever seen before with COVID-19. So it's an advantage, but how? From my side, I'd say it's at challenging times like these that the true value of products and services get to shine through. There's a lot of noise and hype in the world, media the way it is, devices the way they are. So it's an opportunity to stand out, really. The other thing that springs to mind to me as a sales professional or representing sales professionals as well is the doubt amongst people. People are doubtful. They're questioning everything right now. They have to for their own safety. So never before have we had so much focus on one thing, one problem, which is surviving and thriving. It goes beyond our jobs. So if people are all focused on getting this pandemic, getting past the pandemic, then every decision that people are making will be measured against it, right? Because if you listen to the news and it's not about something to do with the pandemic, you think, well, it's irrelevant. So I think when you're approaching every conversation, it's got to have some relationship to how that helps, whether it's a phone call, an online meeting, sales engagement that you do.
Mm-hmm. Let's shift that to a more personal thing. I mean, normally salespeople are on the road, right? You're moving from client to client, from meeting to meeting. You like that eye contact. You like shaking hands. It's like a contract when you shake hands and close a deal, right? And now you're sitting in that room for weeks. When we prepared for this meeting, you showed me your children's toys right next to you. So how much does that affect your mind as a salesman?
It's a big question. And by the way, the toys are behind the banner, if anyone's interested in that. Well, I think people's lives have completely changed, some more than others. People are staying at home, they're working at home. They're frankly struggling in some cases, with that. A lot of my customers and even some of my colleagues have found it much harder than somebody like me. Let's say for a modern seller, I'd like to think I'm one of those. It's less of a problem, I think. I think we've been working from home to some extent for all our lives. In fact, we've learned to work from home, car, train, bus, hotel, office, customer site, and so on, amongst distractions, actually. So it's kind of a business as usual in our day job for many modern sellers. So let's focus on doing our job and fulfilling the purpose of our services as best we can, with one theme, though, and that's helping customers to succeed with our products and services in whatever it is we help them to do. So with that in mind, here at getAbstract, for sales professionals to represent and lead the values of the company and the market, this is a great time for us to actually take a step back when there's more time and learn, actually check out the best practice, remind ourselves what we should be doing when the chips are down, when we need to use every opportunity to maximum.
Best practices, that's a good keyword. When we prepared for this live session, I asked you to come up with at least some abstracts and some takeaways from those abstracts, and you wanted to talk about. I asked you to come up with stuff you think that's useful for the audience right now. So, and you came with 2 themes, and at first glance that seemed quite manageable as a takeaway list. But then when I dug deeper into the topic, and on the second glimpse, a huge field of possibilities open up depending on those 2 abstracts, right? So before we get into those themes, how did you come across those 2 topics? When did they strike you?
Okay, well, I think just to look at, I've been following our own material, getAbstract's material, sales books and videos and articles for a long time. And one thing I've certainly noticed is that proven practices, the things that my late father taught me when I was in my late teens, a lot of them and all the modern things did not really change. People still need to deal with people and trade needs to happen. Well, there's a lot of new angles, though, particularly with things like technology coming in and customers changing slightly. So the angles and stories have changed, but the practices, they still work. So there's only so much time today, so I picked a couple of themes. I talked to a few colleagues, and I wanted to share just the 2 themes that I thought could help us during these times to at the very least, make us reflect a little bit about the value and potential of what we do for customers and prospects around the world. So I looked at sell with a story and sell with noble purpose as sort of 2 helpful cornerstones or areas that you could look at. And I say, don't take my word for it. Ending and referring to here when I talk about books, don't think I've gone and read the full book. It's in the abstract library. You can access it. So, and of course you can look at links, I believe, on the journal and also within the comment section. So, use this to access them.
Yes, that's a good reminder, because our free assess phase is still running. getAbstract decided to open up the library, so just go to getAbstract.com to take advantage of that. Just enter your personal information and you'll get free assess until May 18th at least, including the 2 summaries Paul already teased. Paul, let's start with the first one. Sell with a story. As far as I know, every salesman is a storyteller, right? Do you know that from classic literature, maybe? And for better or for worse. What is so special about the principle sell with a story? That seems quite obvious to me.
Okay, well, referring to the abstracts, one abstract that really got my attention, and not just mine, my colleagues' attention here at getAbstract, is a book of an ex-Procter & Gamble executive, Paul Smith, not the clothes designer. It's called Sell with a Story. And I think we've all touched it and read it and benefited from it. So, I mean, anyone who's a key leader in a company like Procter & Gamble, they're going to get my attention anyway. So I'm going to be listening. But a key takeaway from it for me is just the process of developing stories about why your sales calls matter, help you see the value of client services you provide. So I thought a good way to bring this advice from Paul Smith to life would be to share a real story, a sales story from the field that actually changed my life in many ways and aligned to a lot of the practice. If you're willing to listen, I'm willing to tell you. So it's the story, and we'll come back to some of the ideas later. So there you go. So a long time ago, some years back in the UK, I was a sales rep for a UK team of actually the largest corporate training company in the world at that time, would you believe? I've been working on a huge tender with one of our UK banks, still a very, very big brand today. It was the end of the 90s. I know that shocked somebody to think I was doing that then, but the bank had recognized that to sustain their edge as a leading bank brand in the country and in the world, actually, the current methods and systems were going to have to change, in fact, change dramatically. So 6 weeks of residential face-to-face training for all the certificates, planning certificates they had to do still in the UK, were costing a lot. And they were being overtaken by what they call challenger banks. And these people were being trained and certified and emerging with new tools. They were using e-learning en masse for the first time. And the key factor here is that they're doing it at speed. So what was taking that bank months was taking the other bank weeks. So there's a huge driver on the business to not just to cut costs and all the short-term things, but it was to survive actually and not be trodden out of the market by the challenges. So long story short, which is very hard for me to say, my company had an e-learning design arm. I was the only UK rep. I think I was selected because they think I like computers. I think that was to quote back in the day. They're a little bit old-fashioned outside the e-learning team. I'd say but we proceeded through the tender process, something known to the customer as the e-learning conversion program. It was worth a lot, though, for the time. It was worth over £1 million in revenue to the successful company. It took 6 months to go through that sales cycle and process for the formal piece anyway. It was very challenging. It combined the need to understand technology, which was a lot different in the end of the 90s, with the ability to be creative, solve customer problems in a new way with new technology. So cutting forward, 6 companies made the final shortlist. After a final pitch in the south of England, accompanied by our most clever, innovative and creative colleagues, I have to say that sincerely, and the CEO of the group came as well. We found out soon after we came a close second. I'll refer back to the CEO later on. What was the reason we came second? Was it capability? Nope. Was it creativity? Absolutely not. No, it was a result of a then CEO trying to do deals in the room with the tender committee. They felt that he was more focused on the deal rather than actually us being fully prepared to be a trusted partner to solve a massive problem they were facing. So that was my £1 million deal gone in an instant, not to mention the money commission rewards that came with that. And it was lost through poor selling. That was the story.
That was quite a low blow, I can imagine. I mean, how did you cope with that? Maybe you look at this at that time, right? Maybe first there was anger or something. Maybe there was something different. What were those feelings that overwhelmed you? Maybe you're coping with a loss, massive loss.
Yeah. I think the first thing is blame. I knew Square that CEO would not be a CEO of getAbstract, I know that for sure. But most companies, CEOs, they're the leaders of the company and they lead in the way they're supposed to. I think there was a lot of blame actually did sit with that he lost the deal that took 6 months to be done because he put the wrong impression out. He showed the wrong hand. So I reflected on it with blame, if I'm honest.
I wanted to mention that because you wrote an article for our journal a couple of months ago already that really deals with losing deals and how to cope with that as a salesperson. You can find that article on journal.getAbstract.com. And but Paul, let's get back to that story. I mean, you just told that long story and you have to come up with something you learn from it, right? That's the essence of the book. So what exactly did you, Paul, find out by telling you your own story of that specific loss after you dealt with those anger and blame feelings? What counts when you reconsider those own strategies and mistakes maybe you also made?
Well, I think it's interesting to reflect on, Michael. The abstract I referred to is about helping yourself as a sales professional to really think about what makes a story good. I hope I haven't made a bad impression with you with that one so far, and how they can resonate so much better than a typical, PowerPoint doesn't quite do it for me these days. So I think the story is better. Paul Smith, the guy from the abstract, Tell the Story, he talks about the structure of the story, for example. So featuring a hero, an obstacle, struggles to overcome the obstacle, and a concluding lesson. So he also reminds us to think about our stories in a relevant, meaningful way to our audience. So they should feel the drama. That really hit a tone with me, feeling the drama. And it related to a situation where we're helping them with the story, I guess, is proof of your methods. It's a way to sort of put the proof of you being able to help them, the customer, alleviate the problem, maybe remove the doubt, if you like. So if you'll allow me, before I leave the story about the bank, the good news I can share, because I do like a story with a happy ending, is that because of the relationships we developed with the bank in that 6-month period, of learning all about them, by the way, in great detail, we got the attention and the respect of their leaders in a different light than just our e-learning capability and design capability. Because we also had that company, not to name names, it also had a training services outsourcing arm. They opened a new dialogue with us after that project. In fact, on the day, I remember the guy tapped me on the shoulder to say, give me a ring. He'd already made his mind up that that project wasn't happening. But basically, to cut to the chase, that led to, they wanted to outsource their internal team of consultants. There were 26 of them at the time. We got them down to 13 by the time the deal was done. But 1 year later, more or less to the day, we closed a 5-year contract worth £15 million. And I've got to say, it was probably the best payday of my career, certainly for that part of my life. And I think the reason to quote that is not because of the money. That money is very much gone. It was down to a lot of focused hard work and engagement from a big team. It was never any last-minute wheeling and dealing for a quick win. There was no quick win about it. It was a lot of work. And that brings me nicely to the other theme. I talked about the two themes I wanted to share today. And that's best explained by sales author and sales expert Lisa Earle McLeod. And she's already been a guest on this very slot on Get-Togethers in April. We have the abstract of her book, which is Selling with Noble Purpose. And I strongly recommend this to all sales professionals. It was a colleague that recommended it to me, especially during times of coronavirus. I think the impact and change this is and will have, it's going to continue to affect the markets we serve and the customers we want to look after.
Why exactly this book? I mean, I'm relatively new to GetAbstract. I'm here for half a year or something, and I quickly found out that there are dozens of books putting emphasis on that. On that it's better and easier to sell something with a purpose, something that is useful and not a waste of time and money. So, what is your key takeaway here?
Sure. It's a big point, you're right. The absolute key theme of this book is that to be truly successful, we sellers must recognize and purvey our own noble selling purpose. The author talks about NSP by the time you read the book. A key takeaway for me is very simple. Their noble selling purpose is to improve their customers' lives. That's a simple concept. I can't honestly say in my 30-year sales career, I know that might surprise you, that I've always been noble in my selling purpose. I haven't always had one. I'm sure many people will relate to this. We don't always wind up with a job and company that best suits our own personal values all the time. It's just not possible. But I feel fortunate, very fortunate these days to know that when I do my job, I'm never thinking just about the size of a deal. That's an after thing, or the kudos or rewards. It's not about that. It's actually a far simpler concept. It's helping my customers to help their people make better decisions every day at every possible stage by having better and unbiased objective knowledge of the world, the bit that they need to know about in very little time. Very simple to just stick to that concept. Other examples in other industries could be medical reps leading the sales of life-saving medicines, vaccines, for example, or car salespeople making sure people get to work safely and on time, engineering reps, keeping our factories, shops, and supply chains running so we can eat. So there's a lot of nobility amongst what we do in our profession.
So you're very lucky to be with GetAbstract, right? GetAbstract and GetAbstract products make it somehow easy to sell with a purpose or with a noble purpose when it comes to the good knowledge and the insights we provide. But what about less meaningful products or services? The world is full of them. And in other words, how can you make sense of such invisible products, something you can't make a story of or can't make noble in any way, toilet paper or whatever? What if, especially as during those lockdowns, selling is made extremely difficult or even forbidden? I mean, that's that struggles people are currently dealing with, right? They are not allowed to sell, and what can they do in the meantime?
Well, firstly, toilet paper sales in the UK is incredible. I think you might have oversupply in that market at the moment. I mean, the fact is, you're right. I'm fortunate to do what I do. I help people digitally. We work in a digital world, which puts us in a very unique position. Anyone working digitally. So I do feel for companies, and reps that are in that position. So if you're forbidden from selling at all you can do is plan and prepare yourself as best you can until such time that you can. So, maybe focusing on self-development, practice your stories. Go and read the abstract, practice the stories. Practice it on people in the same role as you, practice on people in different roles, talk to your customers, practice on them, with a good relationship, you can do that. I think the key thing is to keep engagement and trust in place as much as you can, so that when that time changes, you can hit the ground running. I've got one customer in the retail sector, so I'm not divorced from the realities here. That particular retail customer is furloughed himself now. I mean, even the learning team's furloughed. That's when you're ramping things down. But prior to that, we agreed a plan to renew the contract when things return to normal. The deal's delayed, but it's far from lost. In fact, if anything, giving, we've told you about the free offer today, that includes companies, giving that access to thousands of people still left in that company has strengthened our relationship. It's really, and it was quite cool, to be honest, before that. It's actually been an opportunity and an advantage to open that dialogue.
Mm-hmm. So in the meantime, that free access also makes it easier for you when it comes to clients or prospects who decided to stop spending because of the current crisis, right? I mean, there are many of them. They just stopped, and even the best and most noble purpose seems useless under these conditions. So that's getAbstract gives you a hand, tries to help you, but how do you deal with such news and circumstances if you're not working for getAbstract? I mean, any advice for your colleagues?
Well, for what it's worth, sure. I mean, I think you have to remain absolutely positive and focused on the future. Hopefully when spending will return, given that we don't know what the new normal looks like, but you have to keep positive and decide what you can do and focus on rather than what you can't. So things like training, reaching to your market, plan your return strategy, make sure that you take a lead in getting your customers to stay with you longer term, and don't lose them if at all possible. Maybe you've got the chance to extend your payment terms or delay a contract renewal for a few months without affecting your financial year. I'd also think very hard about what customers will need after this period of time, and what the focus needs to be of your sales approach into helping them in that. So I think it's about being relevant too. So even though you can't do it now, do it for the future, be ready. And talking of helping customers and people, there is another thing I want to mention, which has always been something I've valued in my career. It's personal well-being. I think nobody can inspire others to adopt new ways of working, thinking, buying, consuming, or whatever, if they themselves aren't in a good place mentally and physically. So being stressed out and feeling negative will always detract from anyone's performance in whatever they do. Sales is very sensitive to that. So not only should we as sellers be thinking about adopting and readopting good practices and new ideas, we should also make time to look after ourselves, particularly now when it's stressful. And to that end, I would recommend our health and fitness channel to grab some outside world ideas on keeping positive, looking after our own mental health, mental well-being, as well as staying fit and healthy to the best of our ability, and art on our terms as well, not doing somebody else's workout, choose your own. So, I mean, reflecting back on the story about the bank and the CEO effectively losing a big deal for us, it was a stark reminder that only when you genuinely seek to help solve people's problems in the best way you are capable, will you ever be successful in sales consistently and in a predictable way. That was more advice than you got.
Yeah, somehow a very good ending, something you quote at the end of a great interview. But I still have one question. There's one question left. So maybe when we are ending with this optimistic tone, or in this optimistic tone, has anything happened to you in the last few weeks that could cheer up your colleagues somehow? I mean, maybe something personal, an anecdote. I mean, a small success story in terms of forced remote selling. Many people are not used to that. What upsides does this selling from home have?
Okay. Well, it's a lot easier to get to work, I'll tell you that, Michael. But there are two remote working successes I could share. I did think about those. One is just for fun. We'll come back to that one. The other one's about executing business online, purely online, which is interesting. So first, the serious one. I've been working on a tender. Seem to have a lot of those in my life. I have recently been working on a tender, though, for 4 months with a large global company. I've literally been targeting them since I got to getAbstract 6 years ago. So quite an important one to me personally, as well as to our company. We made the vendor shortlist just before the lockdown period in the UK, which is sort of mid-March, or actually mid to late March. And for the first time in my career, I led our pitch from my home desk, from this very desk. I might not have had the stand-up, but it was here. I wasn't suited. I wasn't booted. I had a full, the days of full suits and three-piece suits, and I was joined by 3 colleagues. So there was 15 customer representatives, 15 business stakeholders from the client, and the 4 of us from getAbstract, so all online. And really, the story is the outcome. It was one of the most organised, professional, and clear meetings I ever attended. There was less small talk, hard for me. Talking was at a premium. And it allowed us to stick to the agenda and get through what we needed on time. And now we're in the very final stage of, I'm very hopeful about getting this new customer on board. But the feedback from them afterwards was very positive too. So it was a successful online big meeting. The second part of this, the fun story, it actually relates to using platforms like this with Zoom, Teams, GoToMeeting, whatever it is that you use, Skype. I've been on in 2 significant online meetings. By significant, I mean you can't mess them up. We're doing real business. In one case, some IT changes. But I discovered just before these that you can change your virtual background. You can do it on Zoom. You can do it on Teams. I had two meetings respectively. And at the end of each of these meetings, I ended up showing the participants how to change their virtual background, put themselves somewhere other than the home office. One call with a big famous bank ended with a customer on a beach, while my colleague was in the mountains, which is very appropriate for a Swiss company. I was in a fancy office myself. And it just was a very positive way to end an otherwise busy meeting. The other meeting I had was with another major brand organization, one of our long-standing customers. It was an IT implementation meeting. They were moving from one type of server to another and needed us to move our services. But there was a bit in the call where our colleague had to go offline for a minute. So we were just sat around. I did exactly the same. And basically, at the end of that meeting, we had 2 or 3 of us in different places. One was on the beach, and 2 of us were in the exact same office, apparently. So, that's how it ends. And thank you.
Yeah, different ways of communicating with one another. And as you can imagine, this background here, I just put it in advance, right? This is not my actual living room. I just put it there in this kind of software. We have this kind of backgrounds. Thank you very much, Paul. When I first got to know you in Frankfurt, I think it was half a year ago or something, I have to tell that anecdote because that's why I invited you to the talk. You had to prepare some kind of test pitch in front of us, of the audience, and you had around 15 minutes, I think. And it was my first, it was the first time I took part in some kind of training. And I saw you doing it and stopped the time. And I saw, okay, it was 16 minutes. Normally, I don't listen to sales pitch. I don't really like it. But this one, I thought, okay, I could have listened to this guy for another 40 minutes. And that's the same here. Unfortunately, we're at the end of our today's session. Paul, it was a pleasure to have you with us. And I think we got a lot of interesting insights and maybe some advice that is not only for salespeople, but for other people who are struggling with the situation too. For those, thanks, Paul. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My pleasure.
For those who want to dive deeper into this topic, yeah, watch out for our channels. on getAbstract.com. Take a look at our new sketchnote learning path on the topic. And tiny hint, Paul advised on it, so it's pretty useful. And now thanks for watching. Make sure you check the schedule for the get-togethers of next week, and see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Extraordinary challenges require extraordinary responses from thought leaders, company executives, and employees. As the coronavirus pandemic unfolds and businesses scramble to adapt to escalating containment efforts, getAbstract is here to help organizations navigate this crisis wisely and professionally. For over 20 years, we've been committed to providing relevant knowledge from reliable sources to help people make better decisions in their personal and professional lives. In line with our mission to empower decision makers with relevant knowledge from trusted sources, we are proud to offer businesses free access to our full library until May 18. Embark on a no-strings-attached knowledge journey with getAbstract. Sign up today.